You and I are both seeking the very same thing. We both want to achieve the peace that Jiraiya-sensei envisioned. You and I are the same. We're both motivated by our desire for peace and justice. The justice that I have delivered against the Leaf Village is no different from what you are trying to do to me. Everyone feels the same pain when losing something dear. You and I have both experienced that pain. You strive for your justice, and I strive for mine. We're both just ordinary men who have been driven to seek vengeance in the name of justice. And if one comes to call vengeance justice, such justice will only breed further vengeance and trigger a vicious cycle of hatred.
なんだ。夢か。父上殺されちゃってたよ。あちこち戦場を渡り歩いてバケモンみたいな大男と戦って、しまいにゃ奴隷と来たね。よかった。平和だ。
今ならお前にもわかるだろう。お前に敵などいない。誰にも敵などいないんだ。
まだそんな泥に引っかかってんのか、トロフィンよ。よう、ご無沙汰。
So, this scene might not be what it seems at first. In the Pain arc, Naruto Shippuden relates the Buddhist concept of Samsara, the cyclic world of suffering and rebirth, to the cyclical nature of violence and war. While not the most well thought out of Buddhist philosophies, the metaphor is obvious through the author naming the 6 paths of pain after the 6 realms of Samsara in Buddhism, and through Pain's musings on the cyclic and inherent nature of violence. Though Naruto seeks to liberate the world from the cycle of suffering through the detailed philosophy of talk no jutsu and being the main character, the story nonetheless draws a direct parallel between ending the cycle of personal suffering and ending the cycle of violence. In Buddhism, one achieves nirvana, or the liberation from the cycle of suffering, death, and rebirth, through acceptance of the 4 noble truths and following the Eightfold path, both of which I'll get into later. While Naruto may not have clearly incorporated these teachings as a path out of suffering within its story, there is a manga adapted into an anime that I think presents those teachings in a clear yet subversive way: Vinland Saga. Of course, presenting Buddhist ideals in Vinland Saga is inherently subversive, since it's set in a historical period featuring North Germanic religion and Christianity, not Buddhism. But of course, in Japan, while there are small numbers of Christians, Buddhism is by far the most prominent and most culturally influential religion, and a Japanese man, Makoto Yukimura, wrote Vinland Saga. While he might be a Christian, I don't know. Buddhism's influence is so large in Japan, I think he might have inserted themes into the story without even realizing he was doing it. Death of the author, etc. Still though, I didn't really consider the story from this perspective until this scene in Season 2 of the Vinland Saga anime, in which Torfin, while unconscious, has a vision of himself falling into another realm, where he sees people fighting, being resurrected, and continuing to fight eternally. At first, I thought Thorfinn had fallen into hell, but then he asked, This initially doesn't seem to make much sense considering her historical perspective on the mythology of Valhalla. Valhalla is supposed to be one of the 2 places, the other being Folkvanger, where slain soldiers go after death. While the soldiers do fight in some descriptions of Valhalla, for example in Gylfaginning, they fight in a courtyard for sport. They return to the hall because Valhalla is a physical hall within Asgard, home of the gods, and they drink. The army of dead soldiers exists to help Odin in his war against the Jotnar during Ragnarok, the end of the world, not to torture each other eternally with seemingly no supervision. But then, I thought this might have been Vinland Saga's interpretation of Valhalla, that it is hell. In its morality, only the most condemnable go there, those who perpetuate the suffering and systems of domination in the world. It doesn't have the kindest view of soldiers, even child soldiers. Therefore, it would make sense for them to perpetuate that suffering onto themselves eternally, but then I realized they were laughing. That didn't seem like the eternal torment of what hell would be. Why would hell be an enjoyable experience? And then it all clicked for me when Askeladd said,
ここがあの世だってのが冗談じゃねえぜ。写しよそのものだろうが。ここはクソどもの吐きだめだ。
He doesn't elaborate on the statement, but I think I know what he meant. This wasn't hell or Valhalla. This was Niraya. Niraya is the equivalent of hell in Samsara, where one removes evil karma through suffering. Karma, in Buddhism, is the concept of the consequences of one's actions, both in the world and in the process of rebirth. There are multiple hells in Niraya, and if I had to guess which of the ones I know about Torfin is in, I would guess Sanjiva, the reviving Niraya. It's said to be deep within the earth, like we see in Thorfinn's vision, where the residents exist in a state of constant fear, especially of being harmed by others. But as soon as that fear manifests, their peers appear and attack each other, and hell guards attack them, the residents reviving as soon as they're killed, only to be attacked again. Considering there are many hells described in Buddhist mythology, it may not be this one, but I don't think that really matters. What mattered to me, at least initially, was that Askeladd said it wasn't the afterlife, that it was the same as the world of the living. Some also see states of unhappiness like Niraya within Samsara as mental states rather than physical places, which lines up with a multifaceted way to view this scene. It also lines up with the idea of Samsara as a continuation of the real world through reincarnation and not a life after death. Then, Askeladd continues.
ここはクソどもの吐きだめだ。勝敗はない。終わりもない。ここじゃ自分以外は全員敵なのさ。
以外全員敵。
覚えてるか、トルフィン。お前もかつてはこの世界の住人だった。お前は一度自分がうつろになった。だからここを抜け出すことができたんだ。
This calls back to Vinland Saga's central moral thesis.
お前に敵などいない。誰にも敵などいないんだ。傷つけて良いものなどどこにもいない。
俺に敵なんかいない。
This idea concurs with Christian and Buddhist views of morality. As many know, Jesus advocated to turn the other cheek and love thy neighbor. In the context of Buddhism, however, the comparison is even clearer. Buddhism's morality is linked to karma, in which one's actions influence the future one experiences, either in their current life or in their reincarnations. Considering that, it's not a surprise that warriors would experience the effects of their violent lifestyle in a rebirth, so they can understand the suffering caused by that violence. I know Askeladd says there's no end, but considering he also says Torfin used to be here, I think he means that metaphorically, or more specifically, that while one is within that place, there is no end to the fighting. This of course makes it more compatible with Buddhism than the Christian concept of an eternal hell. But this alone doesn't convince me they're in Samsara. It's that Askeladd says Torfin, for better or worse, escaped almost by accident, by becoming empty after being sentenced to slavery. While other religions have teachings similar to this, I think this equation of emptiness to virtue is this scene's most direct link to Buddhism. Nirvana literally means the state of being blown out, as with a candle. By losing his attachments to his place in society and his life goal of killing Askeladd, he had lost the attachments that were keeping him in that place of torment. The Four Noble Truths essentially say the desire caused by attachments causes the suffering inherent to life, and that only through letting go of that desire can one achieve enlightenment. So through having those desires taken from him, Torfin inadvertently became closer to enlightenment. However, Torfin does not instantly reach enlightenment. He's still in a world of suffering, but just out of the hell he was previously in. That is why he experiences the karmic consequences of his PTSD, and why Askeladd says he has a climate of Nuraya with them, that his actions have passed and won't simply be forgiven, but instead, he has to live with their consequences.
だからそいつらをぶら下げたまま登れ登れそれがお前の戦いだ行けお前が殺したそいつらを連れて本当の戦いを戦え本当の戦士になれトルフィン
The weight of these consequences is why the people Torfin sees are laughing, I think. Unable to immediately interpret the consequences of their actions once they have to experience them, they laugh at the irony and seeming absurdity of what they're experiencing, just as they treated life as a joke in their previous life. Nonetheless, I believe Torfin is ultimately meant to be heading on the path to enlightenment, and we can see how this is using the Noble Eightfold Path. We can assess where Torfin is now in the Eightfold Path, and whether his goals seem to be in alignment with it. The first step is right understanding, that is, seeing reality as it is, instead of how we might want it to be. This is something I believe Torfin was forced to adopt when he lost his opportunity to kill Askeladd, was sentenced to slavery for striking Canute, and met Einar. Through these events, he saw the effects of his actions outside his idealized search for vengeance. The second step is right intent, that is, gaining compassion for all life, starting with oneself, and pursuing one's truest desires with a consideration of one's right understanding. If Torfin starts the farming art trying to develop a right understanding, this scene is where he achieves that, at least partially, realizing the effects his search for vengeance have had, and develops his right intent, which is why he renounces violence as soon as he wakes up.
二度と人を傷つけない生まれ変わるんだ生まれ変わって償いをしなくちゃ
The third is right speech, or thoughtful communication, a recognition of the truth through the lens of consideration and compassion. I'll get back to this in step 6. The fourth is right action, or taking an ethical approach to life. Torfin's renunciation of violence and his pacifist approach to conflict resolution are likely his attempts at right action, as is his desire to make the world a better place. Next is right livelihood. This is vaguer, but it's basically developing a compassionate way of life, or way of making a living. It also means contributing to your community. I think this is what Torfin is trying to do with his ultimate goal of establishing a safe community in Vinland. It's the logical way of life he develops through his right intent. Sixth is right effort, meaning putting a positive and balanced effort into what one does, not too impatient but not too laid back. Torfin cultivates this, along with right speech, when he tries to save Ketil's farm through non-violence and talking to Canute. Torfin is resolved to do what he can, but he won't do anything stupid that won't help anyone or betray his morals. Seventh and eighth are right mindfulness and right concentration. These are basically the mindfulness and meditation practices you might already be aware of from casual understandings of Buddhism. While Torfin does seem to get calmer and to become more at peace throughout the farming arc, I don't think there are any explicit examples of Torfin incorporating these steps of the Eightfold Path into his life. Maybe in the future he will, but for now I think he's only gone to the sixth step. I think analysis of this aspect of Vinland Saga is important because, despite the main character being a historical Christian figure, the story seems to shy away from delivering an overtly Christian message, though a nonetheless deeply moral message. While it's heavily critical of the Viking religion, decisions like Snake criticizing Jesus' message, only to succeed in his goal of revenge against the pacifist Thorfinn, as a result of Thorfinn's pacifism, Torfin nearly failing to save Ketil's farm, and the refusal to label what Thorfinn experienced as hell, or even the afterlife, betrays somewhat of a dissatisfaction with strictly Christian and/or pacifist forms of morality. We'll see if Thorfinn gets tested in that way in the future, but if there's any religious system of morality with which I think Vinland Saga's morals line up perfectly, at least so far, it's Buddhist morality, and I think it being a Japanese story has something to do with that. But what do you think? No spoilers in the comments please, but I want to know your opinion on what's going on in the anime. Does Vinland Saga have a Buddhist worldview running throughout the plot, or does another religion or system of morality have that influence? Let me know in the comments, especially if you have an interest in any of these religions. Thanks so much to Ali, Amalia, Andy Richter, Fussy Zeus, Maria Person, Michael Gallagher, Nora, The Good Elaborates, Anne Rust, Angela, Oreed, Bamiluka, Darth Cyrax, Fembub, Galen Yeats, Garrett Polk, Grey Days, Krampus, Masso Trumal, Montron, Peanut256, and Questing Refuge for sponsoring today's video. If you'd like to have your name read at the end of these videos, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/satenmadpun. You can also make a one-time donation at paypal.me/satenmadpun. Thanks so much again for watching, guys. Sorry I was delayed with this one, but I've been on new medication and it's been kind of hard to get used to it. Also, I kind of underestimated the amount of time and research I was going to have to put into this, but at least for the next one, I'm pretty sure I'm going to release it pretty soon because I'm not going to have to do that much research on it. It's going to be on the finale of Attack on Titan. I've been wanting to make that one for a really long time, so I'm pretty sure I'm just going to bang it out really quickly. So look out for that one. I'm pretty sure you should see it soon. Again, sorry so much for the wait, guys, but I still have a lot on my plate, but I'm still trying to get you videos as fast as possible. And since we're going to be talking about Attack on Titan for a few videos after this, I'm pretty sure the upload schedule should be a bit faster now, because I have a lot to say that I've been wanting to say for like a really long time. So those videos should be fun and also should come out pretty quickly. Thanks so much for sticking with me, guys, and sticking it out to the end of the video. I love you. Bye.